You need mentoring and reverse mentoring as part of the trust structure. By the way, mentoring is not a calendar option. You can't put it in at 5 o'clock in the day and say, this hour is mentoring. That's not mentoring. It might be counseling, it might be giving advice. It's not mentoring. Mentoring is more organic, it's more informal. It's letting people have access to you when you're making the tough choices and going through the tough decisions that leaders have to make. That's mentoring. And you need reverse mentoring. Microsoft recently sent out a memo to all of its workers in the United States advocating reverse mentoring. A number of companies are doing this now. They're getting the millennials to mentor the older workers in stuff where the millennials are good, like digital. You know, you've got someone like you or me sitting at our desk trying to figure out how this app works. And we're still turning the thing on, and they've already whizzed through it all. They've got it all worked out. Have you ever tried to play a game with a 15-year-old online? Don't go there. It's scary. You're still working which is up, which is down, which is sideways, and they've got 10 billion points on the board. And you're saying, is that me? Did I die? How did I die? So they can, they have a lot to teach us. And one of the areas where mentoring is really important is this next one. This next thing you need for millennials, a human digital culture. 4 years ago, Sony couldn't get a robot to walk. Now they have an entire R&D wing in Japan devoted to what they call robot anthropology. The serious study of how robots will interact with human beings in every area of human life. For the first time in the last 2 years, we've seen the release of robots that can teach each other. A robot, having been programmed to understand a word, can now pass it on to another robot in an almost human-like fashion. In America, we have virtual education. We have robotic avatars, virtual George Washington and virtual Einstein. Technologists have been able to intuit from their writings and speeches how they might respond to given scenarios. Then they build a machine that looks like Einstein or Washington, and primary school kids can ask a question of Einstein and get an Einstein-like answer. All of this opens up wonderful opportunities, but there's some challenges too, like absent presence. Everyone here has seen this in the boardroom. 8 out of 10 are physically there, but something's missing. Because under the table, they are engaging with other people in cyberspace. And one study recently in America showed that 80% of those they're interacting with are actually on the other side of the room. How many can relate? Psychologists call this absent presence. We have a challenge with constant partial attention. This is a big challenge with millennials in your workforce. Constant partial attention refers to the fact that millennials are very good at multitasking on screens because they're surrounded by screens all day, every day. Telephone, sat-nav, computer, tablet, television, movies, screens everywhere. Multitasking, cramming as much as they can into a short period of time. But because they're multitasking on screens, they're no longer as good as they once were at following an auditory line of argument. So the leading judge in England and Wales said recently, millennials are not much good for jury duty. It's not that they're not intelligent, it's that they can't follow an auditory line of argument for a long period of time. I see some heads sort of nodding. A study in Ontario, Canada backed this up in 2009. It found that young students were not as well prepared for university as they had been just 3 years previously. Why? They couldn't follow a line of argument presented in auditory fashion. So if you want to help millennials get ahead and become leaders in their world, teach them again how to read and comprehend what they read, but also to listen and comprehend what they hear. We're almost there. This means we need to focus our technology when it comes to millennials. Don't abandon it, embrace it, but discipline it. In some respects, de-gadgetize the workplace. Imagine if there was one little section of your office where there were no gadgets. No PDAs, no tablets, no phones. Imagine there's just one area just around the coffee machine. The rest of the place is alive with technology. I'm a big advocate of that. But imagine there's one little area that you stipulated is for eyeball time, for the old-fashioned biometric reading. Imagine if you went into your boardroom or your staff meeting or your brainstorming session one day and said, right, tablets away, I have something novel here. It's called a notebook. You will notice, ladies and gentlemen, there is no switch. The battery does not run flat. Now, I'm not talking about, cheap ones you buy in a supermarket. I'm talking about really nice tactile notebooks. Give them to your staff and once in a while use them, especially millennials. A recent study showed that we actually remember things we read on paper better than we do on a screen because there's some connection between the tactile experience of reading or touching paper and the areas of the brain responsible for retention. A recent study in Britain looked at 125,000 emails sent from one office building. It found that 80% of those emails from this big company were sent to people within the same building. It seems that digital communication works best when it's an adjunct to something more face-to-face. This is an area where you can really help millennials and bring out the best in them.